Psalm 18. For a bunny trail guy like me, Psalm 18 is a very target rich environment. Almost every phrase deserves to be unpacked and applied. And so we started with, I'm just going to read, I love you, Lord. You are my strength. I'm just on a personal level, I'm finding that to be my favorite prayer before I drop off to sleep, and a favorite prayer through the day. Verse 2: The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my Savior. And then he offers more metaphors. God is my rock, he's already said that, in whom I find protection. He is my shield, the power that saves me, and my place of safety. The shield was, I think we tend to think of, swordsmen like the swashbucklers in the movies when I was a kid. That these guys just hacked away with swords. No, not really. The shield was an essential part of the weaponry and the armor that any fighting soldier would have. If you are familiar with the armor of God, and you probably are, in Ephesians chapter 6, Paul writes that there is the shield of faith. Take up the shield of faith with which to extinguish the fiery arrows or fiery darts of the devil. It is a defensive piece of armor, but essential. You gotta have a way of protecting yourself against the aggression of your enemy. Well, God, David writes, is my shield. Imagine getting into battle and you bought your shield at Walmart instead of Shields Are Us, and in the midst of the battle you realize, oh, that's why this was cheap. You don't want to ever have that happen. If God is my shield, I'm in pretty good stead. That puts me in a good place. With God as my shield, the power that saves me. Now, as Christians on this side of the cross, I read that and I think, well, that's Jesus. Jesus is my shield. He is the power that saves me. He saves my soul for eternity. I'm not thinking that's what David had in mind. I think David was just thinking about his battle experience, his combat experience, and realizing that because God is his shield, God is the power that saves me. And then he goes on, and I think he's thinking both literally and metaphorically. Certainly, God saved David's life numerous times in actual combat, battle, and emotionally and spiritually, yeah. But the power that saves me and my place of safety, I think that's significant. I think the most powerful positive emotion in our lives is love. The most powerful negative emotion in all of life is fear. When you don't feel safe, you will do sometimes heroic things, but more often we do ill-advised things. Today, I'm very grateful. I, where I live and the things I do, I don't feel physically unsafe. I mean, the neighborhood I live in it's safe. I wouldn't have a problem taking a long walk in my neighborhood at dark, at night. It's well lit. The people here are good, friendly, kind people. I mean, I don't have. I live in Las Vegas, and there are parts of Las Vegas that are not real safe. Okay, it's like it's almost 3 million residents here, so there's any city of that size is going to have places that are unsafe. So I try not to be, without good reason, going to those places. But my life is safe. I don't have to worry that much physically. Oh, but emotionally, the world is a very frightening place. Everybody has some level of fear. Now, there are people who are going to say, I don't fear anything. Yes, you do. I may not know what it is, but you're a human being. There are things that frighten you. There are things that for you are a threat. Now, okay, I could go deeply into this, and I don't think it's probably necessary, but I will say that the reality is, whether we like it or not, the reality is that all of us can be threatened. The other side of that is we are not all threatened by the same things. But when we feel threatened, something important happens in our brain. I've talked about this before, but it's so valid that it deserves a little more airtime. When you feel threatened, the part of your brain that receives that what's the word I'm looking for, senses threat, is deep in your brain, what a lot of neurologists call your primitive brain. It's called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is not a thinking processor. It is a reaction device, not a response device. Okay? It works on the basis of instinct, not this front part of your brain is what does the processing. Your amygdala can't tell the difference between a 0.1 threat and a 10.10 threat. It does. If it senses a threat, it it reacts for the singular purpose of preserving you. This is a gift from God. I think about, people that populated the West 100 years ago. Man, if they didn't have this reaction in their amygdala, they would have died 100,000 different ways, probably. Well, not that many, but dozens of different ways. They would have died. We don't live in that environment anymore, but our amygdala still stays active. And I have had it happen in my life that my amygdala was, in my opinion, so overstimulated that it never came back down to the normal, healthy level, because its only role is to sense the threat and send the message of threat to the pituitary gland, which it sits right on top of. And then the pituitary gland sends out primarily two hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, epinephrine. Well, why? Because the threat has to be responded to. We have to be able to do something about or with the threat. It comes down to the three things. There are three responses, or rather reactions, to threat. The two you know, but the third I've only recently begun seeing in literature the reference to it. But the two you know are fight or flight. The third is freeze. There probably are times when freezing is a legitimate choice for self-preservation, but more often it's fight or flight. In relationships, these three things happen when we feel threat. How real is the threat, and to what intensity is the threat? Well, the amygdala can't make that distinction. It has to happen here in the prefrontal cortex. Here's one of the problems. When the pituitary gland fires off adrenaline and cortisol, especially the adrenaline sends more blood to your large muscle groups for fighting or fleeing. Now, it's not like they send pints of blood in those directions, but your system, our system is very delicate in terms of balance, and if extra measures of blood are going in those directions, then it's not going in other directions. For instance, to your brain. For your prefrontal cortex to make wise and reasoned responses to things around us, it's got to have appropriate blood flow, because it's got to have the oxygen to do its work as designed by God. Anyway, if we haven't trained ourselves on what to do when we feel threat, we will be hijacked by our amygdala. It happens all the time, in individual lives and in groups and in organizations. Well, David says, God, you are my shield, the power that saves me, and my place of safety. There are a lot of people, and this is not just a generational thing, although it is. It's not only, though. There are a lot of people who are living their lives in fear. They do not feel safe. God offers us the truth that He doesn't look away. He doesn't go on vacation. He, for us, like for David, He is our shield, the power that saves us, our place of safety. He provides that. In the book of Hebrews, the writer writes, God has promised, never will I leave you. I will never forsake you. Wherever He is present, I can be safe. Except, we're going to talk about that a little bit more next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.